This is the best
Do you hear me?
of the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Welcome to the weekend. Glad you're all here on a Friday afternoon. We're in the weekend mode, and we hope you are too. We realize the Masters is going on. We have TVs here, and we'll keep you updated in case you are driving around the nation or flipping around on your television. A lot to do as well. A couple of spring games tomorrow, and we'll look ahead to that with a conversation here shortly with Gus Malzahn, the Auburn football coach. Let's begin on the Plains and talk about what Auburn has in store. Like a coach on the field, Jarrett Stidham will compete in 7-on-7 on A-Day. He had surgery in his non-throwing shoulder. He has been watched very closely throughout the spring. We'll talk to Coach Malzahn about that. A lot of changes, replacing 4 starters on the offensive line. And they need a little help at running back. Any volunteers? Okay, I see 1 or 2 hands going up. Meanwhile, Ole Miss has a spring game. Tamu, really great finish to the season. Replacing Shea Patterson. 5 folks in Oxford are fired up about the young man, and we'll talk about that as well. We talked to Matt Luke earlier in the week. Arkansas's got a spring game, too. What are we going to see from Chad Morris? Hopefully a lot more than we saw under the recently departed Brett Bielema. Up-tempo offense. Cole Kelly, will he be the QB? We know Chad Morris likes to move the ball at a fast pace. Look forward to seeing that tomorrow as well. We look forward to hearing from you as well throughout the program, and we'll get your phone calls in just a moment. But first, let's tell you about what we have. Gus Malzahn will join us in just mere minutes. Look forward to that. Ian O'Connor. Conor McGregor has actually been arrested. Ian O'Connor will join us from Augusta National. Tim Brando, who better to talk about whatever Tim Brando wants to talk about. He'll join us in 2.5 hours from Fox Sports. And Brandon Marcello, he covers the Auburn Tigers, and he will join us as well. You may have been with us yesterday. I realize that those of you on radio don't get to see some of the same things, so we'll try to explain. But we showed a video. It may have been during one of the television breaks of a young kid in Omaha, Nebraska. We just saw it. I mean, just heard it. Taylor Hicks has done the Call Paul theme song, which we play before before we come on the air here at the beginning of the hour. We saw a video on Twitter of a young kid singing, or actually reacting to, the Call Paul song by Taylor Hicks. He's 10 years old. Well, actually, he's 10 months old. He'll be 10 years old in 10 years. For those who couldn't see it, the young kid, 10-month-old, as Taylor starts singing the Call Paul, the kid started inching closer and closer to the television. We have a call right now from Joe in Omaha, Nebraska. Joe, I'm assuming that young man is your son.
Yes, sir, he is, and he's here with me right now.
Tell us all about it. This is fascinating.
Okay, Paul. Well, I'm originally from Gainesville, Georgia, the same town as Matt, your recent infamous caller.
That's funny.
I was actually born in Birmingham, Alabama, and grew up an Alabama fan. But I grew up in Georgia from the mid-'70s through the 1990s. So I was there during their heyday of the great Vince Dooley years of the national championships and everything else. But I've remained an Alabama fan my entire life. I joined the Air Force, and it brought me out here to Omaha eventually, and that's where I've settled. And John has been watching the Paul Finebaum show since the beginning, literally in utero. His mom is a middle school teacher here in Omaha, and she would come home every day when she was carrying him and crash on the sofa during your show. So John has been listening to you from the early going and ever since, and he gets excited watching you every day.
Well, I don't know if we saw just a snippet of a video. If you have more, please let us know. We were fascinated by it, and we played it yesterday, and we are absolutely delighted to hear this news. By the way, I also texted Taylor Hicks, and he was pretty overjoyed himself that he has all singers want younger fans, including 10-month-olds.
I'm sure. I actually have probably 10 or 12 of these videos I've recorded.
Oh, my goodness.
Waiting for the right one to send you, and that's the one I sent.
Okay, well, we appreciate it, and we certainly got the message. And if you have any more along the way or more developed, just send them along. And in fact, I just got a text from Taylor himself. He goes, "What's your son's name?" You said John. John,
yes, Johnny, John. Yes.
He said, "Tell John that he can help me write the new theme song." So
I'm sure he'd be delighted.
We'll see Taylor in a couple of months, in about a month when we go to Birmingham. He always sings the song for us there. So keep in touch with us, Joe. Appreciate your service to this country, and what a pleasure to hear from you.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
You got it. That's great to hear. How cool.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
We're delighted to welcome in from Auburn, Alabama, the head coach of the Auburn Tigers, Coach Gus Malzahn. The spring game tomorrow. Coach, I hope all is well. And before we get too deep into the weeds, how has the spring gone?
Tell you what, it went really well. We've got a young offensive line. It's really been good for that group kind of coming together. Our starting quarterback, Jarrett Stidham, has been out, but it's been good for our two freshmen. So overall, we're in a good spot and really just looking for a big day tomorrow.
Coach, let me start with Jarrett, and I know there have been a number of unfortunate injuries, but he had surgery in the off season. How has he come along, and what do you expect, and when can he start getting up to midseason form?
Yeah, everything's went well. It's his left shoulder, which is a good thing. And we've been pretty cautious with him. All we've let him do is 7-on-7, some 1-on-1, some scout work. And, if we were playing today, there's no doubt in my mind he could play. But, we've just decided to let him do some 7-on-7 tomorrow. But he's in a good spot. And I think it's really been good for him, too, just to kind of see things from a different standpoint. And he's actually helped the guys, the younger guys, kind of coached them up. And so I think he's in a real good spot.
Coach, I remember being down there last year around this time, and everyone was buzzing about him, and then we saw what he was capable of. You're certainly one of the top quarterback coaches around. What have you talked to him about just one-on-one in the offseason in terms of getting him ready for this year?
Yeah, I was real impressed with his progression throughout the year. He was playing his best football at the end of the year, and there's nothing like experience, and the fact that he's got a year under his belt in this league, I think that puts him in a great spot. And really, I've seen just his leadership. This is really his team now. Last year he was new. He was trying to get used to his teammates, get used to his coaches, and now he feels very comfortable, and, he's ready to lead this team.
Talking to Coach Malzahn, and Coach, I hate to even harp on this injury situation because it's epidemic around college football, but it's hit you guys pretty hard. I know that these things happen, but what are your thoughts on that, and can anything be done differently in the future across college football, that is?
Yeah, Eli and Will are the two that, had the knee injuries, and one was a non-contact, the other one was going out of bounds and kind of got hit and got his foot stuck, but it was very unfortunate. Besides that, we're in a good spot. Everybody be ready for the fall as far as that goes, but that's two very good players right there that we won't have at least the start of the season.
Last year was so extraordinary, and not to revisit it, but those two wins over the number one team in the country at home, and certainly playing for the SEC title. Expectations are always high at Auburn, and this year will be no different. But what do you take from last year into the 2018 campaign?
Well, the experience factor of actually going through something like that. We went through major adversity. We were able to hang in there and get better each week. And like I said, at the end of the regular season, we were playing our best football. And it didn't end the way we wanted, but a lot of our guys are back, and a lot of our leaders are back. And anytime you go through that experience, you can take those things into the next season. And I really like where our leadership group is.
I remember joking about this when we were together in Atlanta, although probably not a joke to you, the fact that you played three of the four finalists. you can't make this stuff up, but you survived it fairly well with that road game at Clemson, a very tight game, and obviously the other two. Have you ever experienced anything quite like that?
Yeah, that was a grind. I mean, we played the toughest schedule in college football last year, and I really don't think it was close. And, of course, next year, we open up with Washington, and I think, they're a top 10 team, and then you add the West, and your crossover is Georgia. And so we'll probably play the toughest schedule again, next year. But the great thing is we do have experience, like I was saying before, and there's nothing like experience, especially in this league.
Yeah, and I know for you, I mean, this is old hat. You've been doing this quite a while, and we talk about this league being so difficult. Ending the season, I apologize for laughing, but just kind of hard to imagine having to go to Georgia and Alabama. Those will be two projected Final Four teams. Yeah,
there's no doubt. Of course, like you said, I mean, I've been here at Auburn for 8 years, and we end the season with Georgia and Alabama. And, you either got them at home or you got them on the road. Next year we have them on the road. Both those teams will be good. And, but we're looking forward to the challenge.
Once this ends with the scrimmage, what happens next? I mean, I know there's a lot of stuff that goes into your life in terms of traveling and speaking, but how do you handle once the spring drills end in terms of getting ready for the next phase?
Yeah, our last practice will be next Tuesday. It'll be special teams oriented, and then we kind of flip the switch. You go back and you watch your cut-ups from the spring, and then, of course, recruiting is full force. And like you said, I mean, from a head coach's standpoint, a lot of speaking events, a lot of travel, and so you just kind of transition.
And, Coach, I would imagine you're not supposed to assume in this business, but a lot of time with a grandson. I saw that a couple of weeks ago. Talk about that for us.
Yeah, that's a game changer there. 2 weeks ago, I had a grandson, and, of course, Christy is very excited too, and that's a game changer, and so we're very excited about that. And I hadn't seen Christy near as much since my daughter's had him, I'll tell you that.
You seem way too young to be a grandpa, but that's okay. Congratulations, Coach. We appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You're great. Coach Gus Malzahn joining us, a proud grandfather at a rather young age.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
You're not worth a flip.
Daryl is up next.
Paul.
Hello, Daryl.
Why didn't you ask Gus? But Gus, what was most disappointing last year? You saying you beat the dog crap out of Georgia after you beat them in Jordan-Hare? Or you not allowing your team to show up for a bowl game and get beat by a friggin' chump school so they go around and beat their chest and talk about how great they were?
I'm surprised. I forgot to ask those two questions. I wish I had talked to you before the interview.
Malzahn, I mean, you should know better, right? You should know better. I mean, this is 2018. But you got to be hating people while we run around with tape recording because you never know, or cell phones, you never know when you're going to be recorded. And I mean, that right there, you got to know that lit a fire up under Georgia for the championship game. I think that was obvious. I mean, that was a whole different ball game than what took place in Jordan-Hare. Did you agree with that?
Well, did you hear Hayes a minute ago blame it? He said it was all about Kerryon Johnson.
No, well, you know what? If you go back and you watch that SEC championship game, okay, Kerryon Johnson ran the ball pretty good. I mean, first quarter, he wasn't hurt. He looked hurt. But Georgia kept thumping him and kept thumping him and kept thumping him. But it wasn't like he was like 50%. I mean, it wouldn't have mattered how he could have been 100%. It would not have mattered. It would not have made up the 3 touchdowns. I mean, that's just an excuse that Auburn fans like to use, like I like to use the referee excuse against Alabama. We can't lose, Paul. We always got to come up with excuses, right? Oh, what's up with? I just read this the other day. I saw you comment on it. What's up with friggin' A.J. McCarron's brother calling out Greg McElroy?
Well, it all started when Greg said that he didn't think A.J. was really going to make it in the NFL, and then little brother got mad.
Well, what, A.J. can't talk? He can't speak for himself? Oh, he's too busy. I'm sorry, that's right. He's too busy playing quarterback in the NFL, right? I mean, you know what? He needs to realize he's not no Matthew Stafford. He's not no Jay Cutler, okay? He's not no Peyton or Eli Manning. He's not no friggin' Cam Newton. I mean, he is lucky to have a job in the NFL.
Hey, Daryl, the guy has a job in the NFL. Do you?
He does right now, Paul, and this will be his last stop after Buffalo. You know why?
He's been in the NFL since 2014. I mean, that's really he outlasted Johnny Manziel.
But his brother isn't, so who is he?
And Aaron Murray.
McElroy. His brother isn't, so who is he?
I don't think it's so bad. AJ has been in the NFL for 5 years. He's married to a model.
AJ McCrime, Paul. The only thing they got going for them is Triple D, their mother. That's it. Paul, you remember when, I don't know if you remember this or not, but you remember when the day Bush Jones got fired, I called your show. Yeah. I said, Paul, I'm going to tell you who they should hire. And you said who? And I told you who, and you disagreed with me. Guess who I said?
I have no idea.
Jeremy Pruitt. I did. Hey, you think Tiger can come back in the Masters, or you think he's too far behind?
I think right now he needs to worry about making the cut.
I also said on your show, Matt Kuchar, I think he's up like third right now.
You did.
Keep out on him. Yeah, hopefully we have a great Masters weekend. That would make it great, man. That would be awesome. But I don't see Tiger doing it. But hey, Paul, hope you have a great weekend, dude. Get some rest. You're a little moody this week. I don't know what your problem was. Get some rest. See if you can make the better spirits next week, all right?
Hey, listen, I'm not making excuses. I never do that. But he accused me of being moody. Would you be moody if you had to talk to Daryl and Matt from Georgia? Those are moody people to talk to. Let's get to the phones. And Steve is next up in Knoxville. Hey, Steve.
How you doing, Paul?
We are doing great. Thank you.
Well, I thought you survived my other brother, Daryl. They're pretty good. I don't think you're moody. You're pretty solid.
Thank you very much.
Well, listen, I was wanting to give a shout-out to Feinstein. He called it like it was going to be.
He really did.
We're going to make the truth sexy. It's coming back.
John came on here the other day from Augusta and said all this Tiger hype was just that. Cut right through it, and Tiger is looking very average right now.
Well, a lot of people, you look at these golfers now, God, they look like they could play Division II linebacker, and you get in your 40s and get a back surgery. I'm just not going to buy the fact that you're going to hang with those young kids looking like gymnasts out there,
No, listen, he's played well, but, there's a difference in playing in the Bottle Top Open a couple of weeks ago where he came in second and competing at Augusta. It's a totally different animal.
Yeah, I wonder sometimes if we're just so easily manipulated and gullible, or just
the media
make us think we are.
Listen, I don't want to talk like I'm not part of it, but the media sometimes can get pretty clueless, and the hype machine. And I heard it from Jim Nantz. I heard it from everyone else. This is the most anticipated Masters ever. No, it wasn't. It wasn't even close, but the premise was that Tiger would go in there and blow the field away, and it's not over yet, but he's right on the cut line, and that's what he has. He can survive, but he's given no indication today that he's going to come close to winning this tournament.
Yeah, or making it in it.
Yeah, no. Listen. He's a bad shot away from being on the back nine. He has to be aggressive, and if he puts one in the drink at 13, at 12, 13, or 16 or 15 or 16, then he may be done.
He'll be drinking with Mickelson.
He will be, and Sergio.
Hey, I got a question for you. Why you think all of a sudden in the last year, and this just may be my imagination, but the playing field in all these big-time SEC and NCAA sports seems to be leveling out? Kentucky was always dominating basketball, Alabama football, Mississippi State baseball, and hell, they're playing football down there now. Why do you think it's getting more leveled out?
Well, I think every school has more money. They're hiring better coaches, and I think fans in this current world that we live in are not going to sit around and tolerate mediocrity. So they put pressure on the administrators, and the administrators go out and do their job.
Do you think they're doing that at Tennessee?
Yeah, look at Tennessee has a significantly upgraded basketball program. They went through 2 or 3 basketball coaches post Bruce Pearl and Conzo Martin, and in football they went through. Listen, we still don't know yet. Hype and reality are two different things. But it looks like with Philip Fulmer in charge of the athletic department, things are going to steady. And I believe that was a necessary move. They hired somebody to run that program that was a good administrator at Kansas State, but he was a terrible administrator in Knoxville.
I never could figure out if they gave that guy enough time or not.
No, they gave him more time than he needed. They should have never hired him.
You think so? I never could tell.
Well, he was a fish out of water there. He was trying to use a template that he had used previously. And you live there, Steve. I've only lived there for 4 years, but Knoxville is a different place. And you have to have
you can't be a fish out of water.
You have to be relatable to the people and understand it. And how they could have passed over Philip Fulmer for that job, I'll never know. But thank goodness he's got the job now. Thank you very much.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say it.
What is it, Linda?
I think we should see other people.
Are you breaking up with me? On a roller coaster?
Well, we do have a lot of fun. Maybe we should stay together.
An emotional roller coaster? Surprising. What's not surprising? How much you could save by switching to Geico.
I just need a little me time.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more.
Matt in New Orleans, welcome to the program, and good afternoon.
Hey, where you at, Paul?
I am doing great, Matt.
Man, I want to tell you, it's good that I called when Mr. Brando's come on. I really transferred colleges from Tim Brando's school to yours, when he went broke, I think he went broke because we never bought any of the products, but anyway, I'm trying to buy some of yours, except I'm going to try to buy that hose they have at that. But anyway, I was making gumbo yesterday when you was doing the talk on Coach O. And
hey, hold on a second. When you make gumbo, I'm talking to a Louisianian here. Is it just like you throw in stuff at your own leisure, or is it
No, not for me.
Okay.
Where I tell you where you at, that comes from the jazz musicians where they were playing. They would tell each other, where you playing at, and the locals like me picked it up, where you at, So everybody calls us Yats. But anyway, I specifically have to use the Creole tomato. The east bank of the river is where the Creole tomato grew. And on the west bank, the oranges. But let's keep it on. Tomato and the okra have to be in the gumbo. The Choctaw India grew another thing called a sassafras, sarsaparilla.
Sure.
And the root made that beer. But the leaves are what they make the filet with. You see, my granny was an expert in this. She used to have all. But anyway, but for me, you see, I'm different than, say, Colette's people who make it's all the root. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But I put the roux in too, but I have to have a roux, and I have to have the filet in it, and I have to have tomato, I have to have okra, and I have to have the big lake crab, because crab is a good base, for your gumbo. So I make mine. It's kind of like I could just make a okra stew,
Okay.
but it's
Well, everybody's got. I'll never forget growing up. I think my mother asked my grandmother for a recipe, and she said, "I don't use recipes. I just put in there whatever I feel like it."
Well, then that's true too. But for me to make my gumbo, it's got to have those
Okay.
ingredients that I told you in it.
Kubiak, did you have a question here for Matt?
Yeah, how do you make a good roux?
Well, you just cook it. When I used to work the restaurant at night, a buddy of mine loved the way the cuisine at my house was, so I ended up cooking for him. But you could actually bake a roux. I worked with a guy who worked big hotels, and you could bake it, but it's half fat and half flour, and to your color. You know what I mean? I had a little black guy. I said, you should never. He was my dear friend. His cousin played for Nebraska. He was a famous guy. I forget him, but anyway, I said, Rock. I used to call him Rock and Rodney. I said, Rock, you should always make a roux your color. Not darker than you. You are the perfect color for roux. Hello?
Yeah, I'm listening.
But anyway, it was.
Hey, Matt, are you? Can we hire you to do a cooking segment on the show?
Well, I mean, I'm really not a professional cook. I'm just.
We're not professional broadcasters, so we're good.
Well, no, you all are great, man. You know what? My favorite was one of my favorites is when we talked last year, and my wife was Colette. She was so sad because I said the morning my aide died, and you come on, and you were the only one who gave LSU a chance against Auburn. And I was. She says, "What's the matter?" I said, "Oh, I was going to convince Paul that that LSU is going to beat Auburn. The man actually thinks they got a chance." She said, "He doesn't give a damn what you told him. He's going to tell you." He says, "Take heart. They could win." And it was such a wonderful game because
that was one of the few LSU games I got right last year.
Oh no, but you were right on it. But I couldn't believe that. I just said, "My God!" But it was so wonderful because YA, went up with the Angels and they showed the Pelicans go over.
Oh yeah.
And the classiest thing, sir, was that Gary Danielson, a Purdue quarterback. Purdue has thrown for more yardage in the NFL than Alabama, Stanford, all of them. And the game he gave for YA was, it just was heart-wrenching. And the only thing I can say is that it was just a wonderful day. The only thing I can compare to it is when the first Villanova win over North Carolina, because we were all hating on them, if you recall.
Oh, yeah.
But anyway, but no, I think I wanted to. I've been listening to what you're saying. I think Coach O made a horrible mistake when he didn't go for it against Notre Dame, because knowing that he was going into this, don't you agree?
Yeah, I do, and I'm really conflicted by Orgeron because I like him. You have to be proud for the guy, but I don't know. I mean, I think he's put himself in an awkward spot. Recruiting has been good, but not great. He has so much competition now with Jimbo to the west, and Saban is a foregone conclusion there. But anyway. This could be a fascinating year. Not interesting, fascinating.
Well, if he could beat Miami, he could.
Yeah, that's cute. If you look at the schedule, if he loses to Miami, I mean, he's got a gun at his head. Because he's got to go to Auburn, which is a payback game.
Oh God, yeah.
And Florida again. And that's before you get to the second half of the season, which is, Georgia is ridiculous. I mean, how you get Georgia on the schedule this year? State, Alabama, A&M. You can negotiate some of that, but you lose I see if you lose to Miami, I see 2 losses before September 15th. And then you tell me about Florida, Georgia. I mean, a split there would be fantastic, and I don't even know if that's possible.
Well, if they beat Miami, they're going to be all beat up. And who do you think they play? But they play Southeastern Louisiana. And if we beat LSU, I want the trophy that Florida team claimed that they were better than Alabama. What was that? Central Florida, East of Illinois or something? What was the one that won last year? You remember?
Against Florida?
They beat Auburn. Auburn was all UCF. I'm joking, but I mean, they said they were better than Alabama. So I say, if for some reason Southeastern upsets LSU, we want that trophy, because why can't we be number one then? Well, LSU once beat Alabama back in the 50s or so. No, but I'm teasing. I'm trying to be funny. But no, I'm worried for Coach O, and I think that when he failed to, I think it was a very bad decision not going for, because Notre Dame has the Joe Moore Award, the most beautiful award in college football, but besides it being beautiful, the offensive line against our defense, was going to give up a field goal. I think that we would have had a better chance had we gone for it, because Danny Etling is a better quarterback. Here's where my thing is why I lost confidence. I don't care if Danny Etling can make the pros or not. As a college quarterback, he was experiencing as a much better quarterback than these guys we got on the roster now. Maybe they'll be as good as him in 2 years, but they won't be in 1. And that was his chance to do. So I lost confidence in him there. However, he knows more about football than anybody else in Louisiana, with the absence of Saban gone, and there ain't no way the Saints people are going to quit to come to LSU. So I don't know, Coach, but I'm going to keep listening, And
thank you very much, Matt.
I thank you. So, but
always
anyway,
a pleasure.
Thank you for keeping us informed.
What a great guy. What a great caller. We really appreciate that.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Put a little cherry on the top.
Let's get to our golf analyst in Montgomery, Alabama. Rusty is next.
Well, normally they call me I-Man, but you can call me Rusty because we're familiar.
Well, yeah, actually, you once were named. I forgot. You were actually Iron Man, and I renamed you I-Man.
That's right. You gave me the nickname.
I gave you that name and I can take it away.
And you know what? It was a powerful nickname, as opposed to anything you have ever given Jim, because he's always taking it back and quit. And you know me.
Okay, let me see. 41 seconds into the call, you mentioned Jim.
And I'm going to mention Jim and Legend both because I'm jealous, Paul. I mean, you said that yesterday. You told Legend I was jealous. What have I got to be jealous of either two of them? All right.
Well, I mean, Jim is a famous caller. And hold on.
Wait a minute.
Jim is a famous caller, and Legend has his own radio show.
Of course they do. They're the two best liars on this show. But let's just do some comparisons. When I go in the yard, it's my yard, my trees, my kids, my neighbors. When Legend went in the yard, really wasn't his yard, was it? And Jim never had a yard to go in either because he always stayed inside with Mama. When I went out and hung out and stayed out all night, I was with my friends and buddies, hanging out, doing what I do. You know, going out playing drums and meeting people and rubbing elbows with whoever's there. Legend couldn't go out late at night. And Jim had no friends, so he didn't go out at night either. So, I mean, you're telling me I'm jealous, and Legend's got a radio show, and I'm supposed to be jealous of that?
Do you have one?
And Jim doesn't have one, and I'm supposed to be jealous of that?
Hey, hold on a second.
Did
I hear... Hold on a second, I-Man.
Sure.
Take a breath.
Sure.
Did I hear someone in the other room challenge the fact that Legend has a radio show?
It wasn't a challenge, Paul. It's not saying that he doesn't have one. We were just simply asking, where's the proof?
The proof is that he's on radio in Birmingham every Friday night.
Yeah, he's also on SEC Network whenever he wants, but he doesn't have a job here.
Right here. I helped you build this program. I was actually one of the guys that stayed with you continuously.
Did anyone? I hate to interrupt. Did you have your hand up? Was your hand raised? Because I was talking to Mark and John.
Yeah, but y'all put me. I'm in this conversation and I'm listening.
No, you're just talking.
You know, Paul. I mean,
no, you're not in you're not in this conversation. You're not in this conversation. You're just babbling. That's what you're doing.
No, I'm not. I mean, you're the one trying to dodge it because you know I'm throwing fastballs and you're a slow pitch hitter.
Well, you're right about that.
Well, see, I mean, I'm trying to tell you, I'm bringing something. See, I helped you. I've been with you. Not since the beginning, but I've been with you. I am the longest.
Oh, so now you're starting to take credit for the show too, huh? You know, all you guys, all you guys
on the air.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing, man, for all the greatness of your calls. You've never learned how to have a conversation because you never stop talking.
Well, I mean, that's because you talk.
You don't talk to somebody. You talk at them.
No, I'm talking with you. See, you said something, you dead air, and I said something back, dead air, and you're not talking. So when am I supposed to quit talking? See, you can't sell dead air, Paul. I mean, somebody's got to step up to the plate and be the big toe or the big foot of this program. And right now I'm doing that. And I'm telling Legend and Jim to lighten up, Francis, because they suck. As always, Paul, War Damn Eagle, we're only getting faster.
I was talking to Mark and John, and one of you were talking about Legend not having a show. Is that correct?
Yeah, so I'm just relaying information.
Okay.
We'll get the tweet out as soon as we have it. We kind of slipped under. I didn't notice it at first, but it's from at Real Talk 995.
That's the station. That's a news talk station in Birmingham, a Cumulus station.
Okay, again, I'm just reading what's on here that they tweeted out. It says, Legend doesn't have a show on our station. He's an occasional guest on Kip Kiefer's show. Legend should stop telling people lies.
And that's attributed to...
Matt Murphy,
Matt's the program
director, Talk 995.
The proof is in the pudding there, Paul. I'd say Legend, what he's doing for good old Kip, sounds like he's making sure the coffee's hot and the phone calls are answered.
He's like Butch Jones.
You guys, I've had enough of you. You're trashing my man Legend.
Nothing wrong with interns.
Let's go to a real caller here, okay? Jim is next.
It is pathetic that you lack such compellingness anymore. And you get this fool, that started calling the show. I'm talking about this eye monkey fool that you say you named. Well, I renamed him the correct name. He's an eye monkey, spiritually sick, old, pathetic, loser, jealous fool. That's what he is. I'm sorry to tell the truth, but that's exactly what he is. And I'm going to tell you exactly why. Because I have discernment and perception ahead of the curve. The fool will never stop talking when you try to engage him, because he knows where you're headed. You're headed to make a fool out of him. He knows you. He wants to stop you from saying any more about how pathetic and what a liar, what a fool, and just a phony, false nothing he is. He never brings anything about sports. He only brings something about me and Legend. That's all he's got. All he's got. Paul, I can tell you, and this is a fact, it's not a liar. It's not a lie, because my photographic memory remembers distinctly everything that I've done and happened on this show. The first time I called you, 14 years ago, I think it was, the first time I called you, he followed my call and trashed the hell out of me after you said, this guy is great. Talking about me. You said he's a genius. You said he knows ball like I've never heard. Has called and gave me kudos out the window, and then right after that, here comes this freaking idiotic, pathetic, spiritually sick old fool, because he's jealous of me and trashes me. That's the story. You mean to write a book about it?
I wish you already
wrote a book. You ought to write a book about the imbeciles you've had on this show, because they outnumber anybody decent by about 1,000 to 1.
Well, the last book was a New York Times bestseller, Jim. I'd like to try to continue that feat. But and if I wrote about all the imbeciles, do you think anyone would buy it?
Oh, yeah, because now they love train wrecks all over the country. Sure they'd buy it. In fact, that's why your last one didn't sell, because you had too many compliments about me. And
Jim, it was on the New York Times bestseller list. People bought it.
Okay, they bought it. I'm thankful you sent me a copy. So
I mean, if I hadn't sent you one, it might have been number one, but it was up there.
But anyway, this guy and that other fool from Mississippi, they, like Legend said, all they've got is riding on us. Tell that. Is that not right?
Jim, the one thing we have disagreements. That's pretty well known, but at least we talk to each other. He just never. He will not take a breath. That's what gets me.
Paul, stop right there. Stop right. I told you why. Because literally, he even speeds up when you try to stop. Because he knows you're about to expose him for being such a liar. Exposing him for not being what me and Legend are, not being any good, not ever having anything, and he knows if you do that, he's going to look like the imbecile that he really is. Now, tell me,
Jim, you just said your first call was 14 years ago. I've been calling 20 years. So how does that work out? You've been calling, and I've been following you. How does that work, Jim? Do you know math? You said your first call was 14 years ago. I've been calling Paul for 20 years. How does that work out that I'm following you? See, Paul, I'm talking to him. Jim, it's your turn to talk. The floor is yours, Jim.
He's not there anymore.
Did Jim's mama make him come back inside and bring his ball back? My goodness, Paul, on a Friday afternoon, we was having such a good conversation, and now Jim done took his ball and run and hit again. See, there again, another natural-born liar, Paul, just like I told you, Warden M. Eagle, we're only getting faster on Friday. Have a great day.
You're listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast.
Hey, everybody, getting ready or having started the weekend, and certainly the Masters on. Everybody watching. We're keeping up with it, and I know our next guest is doing the same. We appreciate him taking time out. He played golf today, which is what celebrities like him do after working a football and basketball season to death. But, Tim, thanks for joining us. Good afternoon.
Thank you, Paul. Good to be with you. And, it's always a great day. Doesn't matter what you score. The fact that you're playing golf and watching golf and in between your babysitting your grandkids and doing a guest shot on Finebaum, that's a good life.
I have to ask you this because I think we talked about it once, but you worked for CBS, and I know you did shows for one of the networks over there. But I've always thought it was just a travesty that you were never in a tower. Knowing what Tim Brando knows about, unless I missed something, how great would that have been? Let's go to 14 and Tim Brando.
Paul, I'm asked a lot, and I actually I mentioned this the other day. People ask me all the time, especially in the South, SEC fans a lot. They're like, some of them think you're retired because they're not watching the Big 10 or the Big 12. I'd rather watch the SEC, having to remind them, no, I'm actually still working a lot and doing really well. But I'm asked a lot, what do I miss about CBS? And most people think it's the tournament, but it's really not. It's and I never worked over the air on the Masters. I did do a couple of over-the-air golf shows for CBS in the 18th Tower, Champions Tour events, but I did work Masters.com, feature groups, Amen Corner, and all that. That's on the digital side, which I still watch that. If you're a golfaholic like I am, I watch Grant Boone and those guys on Amen Corner, Billy Ray Brown. I think they had Davis Love in there. I'm watching that stuff, and I worked that for 3 straight years.
Okay.
In 11, 12, and 13, and had a blast. Scott McCarron and I did it. We did feature groups, and I had an absolute blast. And going to Augusta and spending the week there with everyone on that crew was so much fun. And like I said, it did spawn a couple of other events that I did for them, and I miss that. I really do. If you were to say, what do you miss most about your old employer, that was, and I wasn't even on the air doing the actual Masters, but it's so much fun, and it's a game that I love. It's a game I keep up with, and I did it digitally 1 year for Fox at the U.S. Open. Have not done any more since. And my thought process on that is, I guess maybe there are some things you're just never going to do that you'd like to. It hasn't materialized yet for me. I'd love to do it. I'd love to do golf, but it tends to be a sport that now is a sport-specific year-round kind of gig, and unless you're a former player or a teacher, it's hard to get opportunities. To CBS's credit and NBC's, they both do a great job, I think, of having real broadcast journalists up there doing some of the holes, but not everyone wants to do it that way. A lot of guys, a lot of producers want to have former players and coaches, and that it's a subjective business, so that's that. But I think there are times when, and I remember when Greg Norman was having his absolute collapse in '96 with Nick Faldo, and we're watching the Masters, and no one would say he's having a collapse.
No.
It was like everyone was scared to death to say that this is one of the great collapses of all time. It took Vern Lundquist at 16 to finally say, and he might have been at 14 back then because maybe Ben Wright was still doing 16. I don't know. But finally, after he was just absolutely losing the tournament in a very big way, he couldn't buy a par on the back nine that day. It took Vern Lundquist to finally say this may be one of the greatest collapses in the history of the Masters. Well, that's what a broadcaster would say. That's what somebody that's a broadcast journalist would say. And I'm really happy that Vern was healthy enough to get up the tower and work this week, because it's a pleasure for all of us. But yeah, it's the one missing link to my career, the one thing that I'd like to do that I really haven't been able to do a lot of. So thanks for asking.
One more. I'm fascinated by this, Tim. I mean, you've done every imaginable sport and some that I've never heard of before when you were at ESPN. But what is the difference in, because we're watching it now, broadcasting golf versus everything else you do?
More than anything else, golf is over acreage. I think it's the hardest sport to actually cover. And that's why I'll never be that critical of production people in golf, because 75 to 80% of what you're watching live on the air is actually on tape. It didn't happen live. And the decision-making that the producer has with regard to cutting to this or that shot on this or that hole is, I can't even imagine what that must be like. And I think that on top of that, for the broadcasters, many of them who know that they're about to be thrown the microphone to a shot that maybe happened 30 seconds ago, they have to say that you're looking at tape, but they have to not give it away. You have to be a little bit of an actor. You have to have some thespian qualities, so to speak, to make sure that the viewer is not tipped off that the shot's either going to be made or missed, even though you say earlier you're at 17. So you've got to be thinking big picture and be, to some extent, theatrical with your approach to not give it away, and yet cover the sport in a manner that's honest. I think that's what makes golf unique to any other sport that's really covered on sports television. Because think about it, there's a gazillion players on the course covering acres of land, and you're trying to make sure everybody at home is on top of it and is on the edge of their seats as you're broadcasting it, knowing full well that about 50 to 60%, and that's probably being generous, is something that you already know the results of before you actually call it.
Well, that's tricky. Well, let's get to what you've seen so far, and and give us a clue of what you think we'll see the rest of the weekend.
Well, I am impressed with Patrick Reed right now. I can tell you that. He is a bulldog, and he's a great front runner, and I believe he just bogeyed his last hole a moment ago and was brought down to 7 under. That's impressive, what he's doing. And about the only thing missing from him, he did so well in President's Cup and Ryder Cup play. About the only thing missing for him, he's one of those really great players without a major. And once he gets one, several might come his way. There's a chance that he might be, if he can continue on and have a great Saturday and Sunday, he could be this year's, Jason Day, or maybe Jordan Spieth of, a couple of years ago. Who knows? But he's really, really good, and he's great when he has a lead. The thing that I noticed most, and remember this weather I was talking about, and it's about to pour down, and we're about to have some thunderstorms and even some tornado warnings are out in nearby parishes in Louisiana. All this weather is going to come southeast, and it's going to be getting into Atlanta overnight into the wee hours and in the morning tomorrow. How the players handle that. Remember, if the golf course at Augusta National does get wet, it will pay dividends for the Bombers. So a guy like Dustin Johnson, who hits the ball a really, really long way, even Justin Thomas, who I believe today has been under par and got it back to, about 1 under? Last I saw, I think he's under par. He's in red figures.
Yes.
Guys like that can really hit it a long way, Paul. They come back into the field. Jordan Spieth had a really tough start because his driver let him down early, as he did late yesterday on the 18th. But if Jordan gets the driver worked out, he's so good on the greens, I wouldn't leave him out at all. And the thing that jumps out at me, Paul, more than anything else, is all of the hyperbole coming in on Woods and Mickelson and some of the other veteran players out there. Bubba Watson, baby. But listen, Bubba is in this thing, too, because of how far he hits it. There's some shots out there that left-handers can make that right-handers can't, particularly on the back nine at Augusta. He could be in this thing on Sunday, especially if the grounds are saturated with a lot of water, because you're not going to get much roll, and the rough is a little bit, tough and problematic if you're in it after a gully washer comes down in Augusta, Georgia. So keep those guys in mind as we get to the weekend. That's the thing that jumps out at me based on what we see right now.
Yeah, we saw Bubba make an unbelievable shot at 10.
It almost looked like the same shot he hit at 10.
It did.
In 2012. I was actually covering that on Masters.com when he hit that shot. And I believe this one today was at 11, where there's water. He hit an incredible hook with water facing him, got it on the green, and 2-putted for par. It was a wonderful par save for him.
And finally, I want to go back to what you said about Tiger Woods. And John Feinstein was with us the other day, and he was railing about all the hype and the reasons why.
Yeah.
But and listen, Tiger is a standalone, never have ever seen type of golfer. But do you think it was overdone, and why do you think it was overdone? If you do,
actually, I don't. I don't think it was overdone, and that's. Your buddy Jim tweeted me today while I was playing golf.
Jim from Tuscaloosa. Does he not?
Yeah,
Can he not let you play golf in peace?
I was, I took a break at the turn and I saw a tweet, so I answered it. He still thinks I can't stand Tiger. I have nothing against Tiger Woods. I just always felt that the packaging of Tigers was over the top, and I just wanted to enjoy the golf. And I felt like, gosh, guys like Matt Kuchar that are out there really playing well. Why can't we just be satisfied with watching highlights of the guys actually on the leaderboard as opposed to guys that are out of the golf tournament after 2 days? So that was my issue with Tiger. It's a little bit like the packaging of LeBron James. We can't watch an NBA game without seeing, what's going on with LeBron first. Wait a minute, maybe it wasn't his night. That's my thing with Wood. I think his transformation, both personally and professionally, in the aftermath of what he's been through since way back when I was on the air during the Iron Bowl and the problem in the driveway, happened at his home in Florida. I think this transformation is real. I think it's one of the greatest that we've ever seen. He's on the doorstep of winning a golf tournament, which to me should be enough. I understand why at Augusta he is a favorite, but at the same time, I think can't we just enjoy the golf? That's the point. And I'm rooting for Woods now. I'm like one of those that really wants to see him do well. I think the two best things of Augusta this week, Paul, for me, watching Jack Nicklaus's grandson ace the ninth in the par 3, that was incredible. Watching Nicklaus as a grandfather crying, talking about the conversation he had with his 50th, that was awesome. Tom Watson, overshadowed at 68, actually wins the par 3. And then the other thing that's just amazing about what we've seen in this golf tournament beyond that is Phil Mickelson and Tiger Woods playing a practice round together. We would have never seen that with the original Tiger Woods. Under no circumstances would we have seen that. So I think he's very comfortable, and maybe to some extent, maybe Mickelson is helping because of his time as vice captain on the Ryder Cup team. His relationships with the younger players and even with Phil, his great rival, are so good now that he just wants to enjoy himself while competing. I think that's wonderful. That's what we always wanted to see from Tiger Woods.
Tim Brando on the Masters and other things. We appreciate you taking time out from watching. We'll let you get back to it. Always a pleasure, Tim.
You asked me once about who would I really love to have seen do golf. Wouldn't it have been great if Keith Jackson could have done golf, Paul?
What would it have sounded like?
Wally, there's a long drive at the Wildlife Country Club, and that ball is going to be up against the wall, redneck mother. Oh, boy.
You would have loved it.
Before you go, I was at a banquet with you one night. I think you did Larry Munson at Augusta National, too, didn't you?
Yeah, he said he's going to need a big wedge to get that one out of that. He's going to lip of the bunker, Paul. He's got to – I don't think he can get even a 60-degree lob. He's going to need a hoe. Somebody give him a hoe to get that ball out of the bunker.
You have not lived until you've been to a banquet with Tim Brando, and I haven't. It cost me a couple of years of my life once in Mobile, Alabama, but we'll talk about that some other time. Tim, thank you so much. What a pleasure.
Thanks, Paul. All the best. Give John and Mark all my best, too. Okay?
I will. Thank you. Wow. Tim's unbelievable. He's absolutely one of the greatest in front of a group I've ever heard.
Thank you for listening to the Paul Finebaum Show podcast. The Paul Finebaum Show airs weekdays on the SEC Network, beginning at 3 Eastern.